Bonsai World. Patricia O'Connor and Frida Reba Dorsey here today on the bonsai balcony. What we're looking at is a view looking out at the balcony on a sunny, blustery Alameda day. Probably our temperature is in the mid 60s. I'm a little more bundled up than that because, as the Black Crow says, the wind won't stop. It just keeps blowing. Probably a 12 knot, but it's fairly steady. So today, what we have here is my Cork bark oak, my Corcus suber, and Frida is also in the house. What I'm going to be doing is getting this guy a little bit ready for the year, for the growing season. I'm going to do a little bit of thinning as I go, not a whole lot. I'll probably do more of that off camera too. But also cut back a few of the things that are in the wrong places. And then I intend to work on our moss a little so that I can facilitate watering faster. Have to get organized here. Okay, so what we're looking at is a tree that I've had for a couple of years. It is a Cork oak, Corcus suber. We've repotted this tree once a couple of years ago, and it's not time to repot yet. However, this moss is makes it actually it helps. It helps with watering in quite a few ways. But here recently, I've noticed that it is so high up above the lip that we're taking a lot of water over the side before it picks it up. And yesterday when I was watering, I noticed that I had more leaf curl. I've already fixed that to about 80%, but I was looking and I noticed, maybe you could see it, we're seeing the silvery underside of the leaves. And if a leaf does this, it's this kind of a curl. It's called canoeing. That could be a sign of lack of water. Now, I've been watering the tree. I've been watering the tree slowly. And it had been taking up the water well. So why? And it had happened just a little bit at a time, so I didn't really notice the leaves curling there at first, just as a couple, and then more, then finally I'm like, why are all those leaves curling? They're curled because your tree is doing well. It's busted out a lot more foliage. There's quite a bit of foliage, way more foliage on there than in the last couple of years past. And that needs to be addressed. But also, I have to water more slowly, more thoroughly. So yeah, what you see on the top here is some moss, first moss that I think I propagated, or not propagated, but we'll go 50-50. I would go a lot down the street underneath their redwoods, and there was a bank of moss growing there, and I would take some tools and slot them and squares it down and throw it in colanders. And then every time I would take the little moss from the trees that I had, I would throw it in those colanders and I'd break it all up, just tear it up really good. And then I would mix it with top dressing on trees and then sprinkle it back out. You guys have seen me do that on a couple of shows. So that's not anything. It's not anything new. But what we have here is so okay. In the last couple of years, we've learned about pruning our tips. Boom. Back buds, percolation. more application, more benefit. We go through, we prune our tips a couple of times a year, and that is not the same as you can just cut the tips and you'll get a flusher back bunch, which is not the same as cutting it off here and getting the branch here. That's more select. This is just something I go through in spring and kind of. So that's kind of the difference between us. And we've done that enough times. We've done that enough times that everything is super, super thick. I have more leaves here than I can see through. I have leaves piled, on top of leaves that are piled on top of leaves that are not getting sun. So I'm taking, especially some of these older, bigger leaves that are already starting to look like they're, starting to look got little yellow spots on them or something. They've had a couple of years in, but they're probably also flagging smaller leaves that are coming through. So I'm starting to take out some of the larger, older leaves, not many, and it's just something I'm looking at right here and doing. And I'm not going to stand up and do this to get out of frame, but just know that before this tree goes back on the bench, I will be standing up, looking down on this kind of like a hairdresser. That's where a lot of trimming is. And I'll be doing the same to the top. But also I've got stuff growing down here a little too low that I've allowed to run. Some stuff down here that I've, in the last couple of years, we've decided. This was a decision. This wasn't. This is. This is, but it's overgrown. A lot of this stuff is overgrown, and I cannot see very well in there to even see what all was too much. But let's go ahead and establish a few. So this is a good example to explain a process too. I've got things that I can't see in here well enough to start making decisions as to what to remove based on aesthetics. What I see is just leaves piled on top of leaves and piled on top of leaves. Kind of like raking your leaves into a yard and then trying to decide how best to organize. So there are other rules though that you can use. That is no rule to do. Things going straight up, things going straight down, things coming back at the tree. If you can't tell whether or not one tiny little twig should take precedence over another, then look for the stuff that's going straight up and eliminate that. That is, now, if I was planning on going through here and wiring a whole bunch of stuff, then I might look at that branch that's going straight up and think, well, I can take that down, or I can take that down. But I'm not wiring my cork for the last couple of years. I've been saving my wire for other things, and I have been operating on more of a clip and grow when it comes to this. And there was a couple of reasons for that. I wired this tree more early on and had so resolved to a point where every problem that I had with wiring this tree, there was a solution to it. There was a solution to it. And for me, it came down to time. The solution, as far as I could see, on an oak like this, is they grow, and when they start growing, those limbs grow fast. So you kind of get wire on them early, and then you have to change it a lot. It'll dig in early. Those scars will last a long time, and aren't something that we could say or put off as being desirable, they look like wire stars. They don't really come off like something dramatic as other than that. Like wire stars. So, in other words, you'll wire something. 2 weeks later, you're pulling that off and changing the tracks, or adding the second wire because it's already outgrown that strength of wire and starting to straighten that out. So you might find yourself playing, wrap another wire over to keep your motion going, remove the first wire to get it to get that wire out of those tracks that you're about to start cutting into the tree, and then put that wire back down in a different area so that it's not increasing that cost, and you could maybe play it that way. Yeah, there are a clearing that would really what I want to do. Clearing out the bottom here. I had let stuff grow on my California oak behind me, kind of like this. And I got a little taper issue I've got to grow out. Slight taper, so I don't really think it affects the looks of it that much. I just look at it, it's a good view, it's something to go well. It doesn't kill the looks of the tree, but technically that's a little reverse taper. I think you can do a little while longer before you have a true issue there, but we're not going to let it go a little longer. And the same here, I've got some branches that I want to keep, but they've got clusters at the base of them. And there's so much stuff coming out here that it's hard to see just what it is we're looking at. So when you don't know what it is you're looking at, find the things that are wrong and go at them first. The removal of them allows for this on. Will allow you to see better and allow you to be able to make decisions on design. Sometimes you almost feel like you lack the imagination, but really it's all imagination. You can't see anything in there. How can you make a decision that is artistic or is aesthetic and things when you can't see in there? So when you can't see in there, the big debate then is what to remove. It's hard to decide what to remove when you can't see. So that's where you get in that's where you get in this little dilemma, right? So there, got a little cleanup here. This breaks that's come in, straight back. We lost part of it. I kept a part of it. Make that over here if I want. Maybe it'll do that on its own. Now, so I'm eliminating some of these oversized leaves. Now I'm starting to be able to now I'm able to see the branch structure that I cut back to last year. So it's a good little mini example right there. I just went into something, a good example of where I couldn't really see what was going on, but I did see some branches that were straight up. So we were able to exercise a rule there that got us a little room, a little better perspective on how to see better. And then once I did that, I saw a couple of other things that were not necessarily helping us design-wise. So once you remove those, bam, here we are. That's almost a flat little pad. And the foliage that's left here, it's photosynthesized. We're not expending all of these resources for all of these leaves for no return. These are hybrid cutters. Also, I call hybrid cutters sometimes, if I can't think of the name of the bonsai tool in a second, it becomes a hybrid cutter. But these are hybrid cutters. They've got that curve to them. I also have my my sheetrock blade and bamboo skewer and weenie skewers, tweezers, hybrids, stainless scissors. These are not my favorite scissors. These are probably the ones that I'm going to say can live out here on the porch. I'm constantly turning around and going back in for things, but when really, these are stainless. They could live out here on the porch. They're also not my higher quality by any means. So I think from now on, I'm probably just going to keep these out here someplace, whether they end up on the floor. I was asked again. This weekend, I intend to do a tray, in this case meaning 10 little bonsai seedlings, and I will bring them to work and put them in the greenhouse, and we'll wind them up and see how they fly. So this is mostly a shout out for locals. That would be an opportunity to pick up one of the little Japanese black pines that we sprouted in the kitchen and added water to. The trees that I would be bringing would all be trees that we sprouted and trees that we wired. You would be able to go back in the videos and see where this tree got its start. I'm also, just for the absolute fun of it, removing my tubes. In that case, both of I had two branches coming out in one spot, but they were both also going straight up. So I took a diplomatic thing and removed them both. Okay, I think for what I've gotten done so far, hopefully you can kind of see. Hopefully you can see the idea. Hopefully you can see in here better. Where I've gotten from here down. We're going to start going from here up. So yeah, we have 10 trees that probably next Monday I'll take a tray of them. They're going to be small little showroom trees. And the pots that this first round will go in are not going to be all of it. They're going to be adequate for little inexpensive little pond trees. But I'm thinking the trees need to be cheap. Any little pots I have laying around here would all be more expensive than the trees that we're selling. Somebody who buys a tree for I'm not going to say what they go for because I don't know what, I'm not going to make that decision. But anybody who picks one up would be able to find a suitable pot very, very easily. I would double the price of it by doing that, or more. Because I don't say it because the trees are going to be expensive. I'm saying it because the trees themselves should be fairly cheap. But if I added one of the little bonsai pots that I want to Susan Crutenden pots, I don't think are going anywhere. I like those are way too personal for me to be pawning off. And those would over triple the price of the trees. So there's the trees will be cheap pre-bonsai that we've already got some wiring done on, and then from that point we can from there our happy little tree buyer could go to Etsy or someplace and get a suitable little Bombay poplar for it. And I've been thinking about this for a while. Usually when I'm not thinking about it for a while, out of the blue, somebody will say, would you sell some of your trees? Yes, I would. The reason that I tend to say no to that is not for the part where I part with one of these trees. I actually see that as being a kind of an ongoing thing, a circle thing, right? I'm limited to my space, and to some extent, this is about maximizing space and creating things. And if I have a garden right where I want it, then I'm probably as an artist a little thirsty. We have to keep moving. So if I sell something that makes space and that allocates money for other things. So what I don't like about selling is a couple of things. I would not be willing to sell at a loss some of my trees, because this is not a fire sale. I think if I had a large garden in my backyard, I would have trees that were up front saying, here I am their best, and I would have so-so trees that I'm bringing along. But here on the balcony, we only have so much space. And I think what we've done is we're like a little, I don't know, if you like sushi, I love sushi. But we're like a small, condensed lump of deliciousness. Our trees are good. Our numbers are few. And I like this length. I want to keep growing back out to this length. So I think we've got, I would not be willing to sell this tree for less than I paid for it. And I paid retail for it 4 years ago. And I think I've done my part to elevate this tree, and also that we came from behind. experimented for a few years about what I thought elevation was before I got on the right path. So I could have elevated this tree sooner, but I think we're at an okay place with this tree. The main thing I would have with selling a tree is shipping. And I say that as a person who has already spent money and lost trees that when I got them, I thought they were shipped well. You know, I thought they were covered against impact and damage for the most part. I had one that looked like it had taken a tumble, and it died. But it probably, looking back, it probably didn't die over the tumble. It probably, because that was a bent branch that I straightened out, it probably had something to do with ambient temperatures along the way in the back of a truck or in the cargo hold of a plane or whatever, however that came about. So shipping would be the part that I would not be thrilled about. It might be that if somebody were interested in one of my trees, and I'll make a list. Not a list of trees for sale. I don't really consider it trees for sale. But in the future, from now on, I don't look for my numbers to change because I just said this. But I will write down a list of our flagship trees, and I will see where I'm at on those, and I would price my trees accordingly. And if somebody were interested in that tree or those trees, and they could do a local pickup, or they were connected to someone who could do a local pickup, that would be good. We're not big enough to absorb the losses of lost trees on the way. I would take something out of my collection that adds beauty and goodness to it, and then somebody on the other end would have a bad tree. I'm not sure how I would want to deal with that, and I would still be very upset, not that the tree had been sold, but that the tree had died. Nobody got it, you know. So in past, I've said no to sales of trees, and it was because at the end of the day, I can't wrap my head around doing what I do, working at a hardware store, and then occasionally turning around and trying to ship out a tree. Yeah. So that's kind of where I am there. No, I wouldn't be opposed to selling one. It would be like selling something from the bonsai balcony garden that would then go into somebody else's garden, and you know, I would sell to somebody. I've had people say it's not for sale. When it was, they just looked at me and thought, "You're reaching. You're out of your game. This tree is not for you." That to me is being conscientious about the things that are your responsibility, and at the same time, I don't just do this for money. It matters to me. It matters to me. Even after you hand me the money and it leaves my driveway, it matters to me what becomes of my work. It says a certain amount about me, but it also said something about the person at that time. Now, I could get mad or I could get offended, but I also say, okay, all right, that's good on you for your decision. And I don't mean that in a sarcastic way at all. That for all I know, that was fate sticking its nose in there before I was about to overreach. Maybe they were right, but it was also a chunk of money. They didn't just say, "You can't have my tree that's for sale because I think you'll kill it." It's like, you can't have my tree that's for sale because I think it would because I don't know that it would do well. I don't know that you're not reaching to try to have a tree like that. And even at the amount of money that would hit our account, no, unbelievable, no. So, like I said, I got it. And but I've buy trees based on what I like. I haven't found a lot of trees that were tore up and in disrepair, and started bringing them along. No, not like that. Usually, my tree acquisitions, and I say this with no regret, a lot of my tree acquisitions were presents to myself. I like old Patricia. I think Patricia has always tried to do her best, especially once she knew what it was. And every once in a while, I just try to be good. And this is Bonsai Appreciation Day. That's what the show is. Actually debated about calling it that, and it was kind of hard to carry on my original idea with this huge Cork bark oak sitting right here in the middle of, I'd already moved it out. I've been doing some arranging here also today. But I'm looking at the stuff floating in my pocket. We don't sweat this. If it isn't swimming, I'm not looking to kill anything. If it isn't swimming, so yes, if somebody were looking to purchase one of our trees, yes, that would arrange shipping, or arrange for local pickup, or arrange for that relative that's coming down for the holidays or something. Connect with it, make it happen. That would be, so once or twice a year, that'd be pretty cool. And then we would be able to move something out of the way and take those funds and take that space and grow. And also, it would probably be fun. It would probably be fun to buy a tree that you saw in the making. And that can work in lots of things. So Pat, I've been watching you do extra that tree for so long, so I'll work out the checkbook. So, been pulling out big old leaves on this guy. Some of the older foliage that gets a little scant also because it's bigger and they're blocking light from the light. So we're just trying to open it up a little. And I'm cutting away some of my straight up, some of my straight back. Also along the stuff that's about to get smashed into the tree because it's going straight towards it. Also, the clusters of things that comes out at the base of the branches, we've decided to keep getting rid of a lot of that stuff. But all in all, this is going to start making everything a little easier to see. and at the same time, it will turn right around and do that again. So we'll get all those new choices. We'll make more judgments with this. These scissors will pinch me in a heartbeat. And when I talk about high quality scissors or low quality scissors, that's how sharp they are, how good they feel in the hand to some extent, and whether or not they leave a wound. I'm not as impressed. I'm not as impressed by lifetime warranty. Sometimes that means the product is really good and they expect to never see most of them again once they leave. And sometimes that just means the product's super cheap. If somebody has a problem with it, we'll send them time more for what they pay. Otherwise, these are stainless steel bonsai tools that won't rust, so it's a good place. Whenever it comes time to digging down in soil and cutting stuff and getting them all dirty and gritty or something like that, that's a good job. As long as I can keep part of my fingers out of the way when it comes time to get this stuff. I hear either whale calls or somebody moving a table across the floor or feedback from someone bringing up a PA system. I don't know what that is. Bad PA system. Maybe it'll be better. Alright. I think that's enough of this part of it. Did you hear that wind howling? So, I've got a little bit more to do up here. I think I've done quite a bit of it already. I am about to break out the other tools and start. Now, when I come through, so I was saying earlier I was having a conversation about all of these leaves and how the tree seems to be taking up more and more water. And at the same time, I'm trying to water this thing before I go to work. And this moss does a lot towards helping, aiding the percolation of water and oxygen. It takes and filters that water going in, and it's a big help. It also gets really fat and thick, and at some point, it's kind of like its own hill of moss, for which the water begins to then run off, which is a concern. All the water that runs off without getting a chance to soak in is not the best. Also, when you have that's brought on because of the mycorrhiza and all this stuff down here that's so happy. Okay, but it's over happy, so I need to cut that back. Also, the tree, that kind of goes back to what we're looking at on the foliage. The foliage is so happy that it is so prolific that it's cutting light off of itself and also giving things that build webs and little. They have plenty of places to hide, and the humidity in the foliage goes up around here, and then we're asking for, at that point, you're asking for powdery mildew, which oaks can just, you can tear up an oak. Yeah. So by allowing more stuff to get in here and get more light, more air, we're working on that. At some point now, I would have to stand up and do the talk. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do that on my time. We've seen probably enough of this, and every time I say that, I say I'd expect it. That's kind of what I was talking about doing. I've kind of made those a little bit more pad-like. I'm taking away some of the straight up stuff and flattening out these. I'll do the same here, but I'll also thin out all these leaves. This is all powdery mildew and caterpillar nests or whatever waiting to happen, because we wouldn't see all that happening deep in there. And here too. And this is all powdery mildew, and it's not like it's an issue now, but it's trouble waiting to happen. Also, a good thorough watering today, and I saw all these leaves flatten out, whereas I had been seeing them curl and canoe, what we had discussed earlier. So the next part of the program, because the tree has been thriving, it is over thriving in its little area here, and we're about to start having to see some ramifications for all that success. We're having trouble taking in the amount of water quickly without it rolling off. We're seeing prolific leaf development. That means that it is, on one hand, so much more in resources, and on the other hand, about to start causing itself problems because it's becoming less efficient as it goes. You know, the more we have so many leaves in one spot, the more most of them are not actually getting anything. So that's why our cleanup is going to be part of our foliage and the deck. And at this part of the game, here's where I move on to the deck. I've already removed most of the biogold in here. And most of this biogold is way responsible for the happiness and the lush look of this tree. Fertilizing. Just fertilizing. And watering. Good watering and heavy fertilizing, and we were definitely off to the races on that. At the same time, this stuff helps us to facilitate mycorrhiza, and it gets so thick that I don't have as much of an issue with weeds and clover as I do on my others, because this is just a heavy carpet bomb of moss that won't allow anything else in. I occasionally see little red roots running around that's clover, and they run along for a long ways trying to find a place to pop up, and it doesn't happen. They're just running along underneath there. So I'm pulling all of this out. It's pretty. It'll come back. We'll grow more. But also, and people have mentioned this before, and I'm not showing these trees publicly, so I see that and I know why it is, and I don't worry about it. I probably should. Some of y'all are looking at that and going, your trees are pretty good. Oh, Jesus, those black spots are disgusting. You see on the top of this, you see what almost looks like manicured lawn, you know? But then in there are little black spots. And those little black spots are where those lumps of biogold sat, sometimes even embedded. I'd push them down in there so they won't roll off. And then after that, you get this little culture going on below the surface where the mycorrhizas is especially happy, and the roots are especially happy. And so this fungus gets thicker and thicker and thicker, and at some point it's harder for me to pour through it. Now, it's still better. I'm saying why we're doing this, but I'm going to put the fungus right back. Not fungus. I'm going to put the moss right back down, and I'm not going to piecemeal it like we're doing some show. You know, I'm not going to take these and try to, you know, I'm just going to scatter this stuff back out and start watering it back in. So this, even as a problem, even as it's causing me problems, it's still better than the alternative. If this moss wasn't here, the top of the soil would get impacted, and that is what and that would cause more runoff than what I'm doing now. So what we're doing is I'm just going to go through, remove all of them, and then I'll come through with our weenie skewers, and we will break up the top of the substrate just a little, just tease it out a little. Maybe, not maybe, break away all of this stuff that is growing on the tree. We don't want to damage our bark. And then we'll lay this stuff back down. That in itself will have been a good show for us. God, this thing's getting heavy for me. We're doing good. We're doing good. I've had this tree. This was an early acquisition. We were pretty well into COVID by the time I started looking to make a purchase of this size. And I didn't know of any bonsai gardens that were open, but I knew of a couple, and not many. I only knew of a couple of bonsai gardens. So when a bonsai garden that had been around since like the 80s reopened during COVID, smaller hours, but they were open on certain days at certain times of day. I jumped in the car and took off, and that was, I met the family of a guy named Johnny Cedar, who owned this bonsai garden and had been doing bonsai and landscaping since the 80s or 90s, since the 80s. So, these maples were beautiful. They were absolutely beautiful maples. And I saw this tree. And as I tell, the tree already had some dieback. I suspect from watering. I suspect that during COVID, things that were known to need water were getting almost what they needed, and things that were known to be water tolerant were probably getting less. So I bought this tree, threw it in the Subaru and brought it home. And then I thought I was gonna remove a few dead twigs when I got it home and started looking at it. And what I saw was that I had a few dead branches that were just popping up here and here and here. So it's like what I thought was going to be a dead piece here and a dead piece here ended up being a couple of larger branches. So I cut the tree back and then started getting a look at how dry it was and trying to take cues as to how much I should water it. And then I started binge watching everything I could find on cork bark oaks, Corcus suber, which brings us to the here and now. I spent the first couple of years underwatering the tree because I'd been told so many times that they were water tolerant, and I was also told that X number of times rookies kill their trees by overwatering them. So I was worried about overwatering this guy. As a person who likes to water, I don't think that's an issue. I don't think I've ever caused this tree any issues. It's always had a good percolation of water and oxygen. And this was a good tree to start with. I had some dieback issues a couple of years ago. Not as bad as the ones that I had seen on my California oak, where I was cutting off blocks of the tree to try to save it from the black death that was crawling up the tree. So, but it was about the same time. Very concerned about all of that. But at the same time, the solution was that I had asked for trouble by watering the foliage. And I had asked for trouble by not learning about proper feeding. And I had missed great opportunity by not learning about pruning of tips and allocating oxen to do its magic. Couple of things later. Once I started cutting the tips on this tree, I started getting more and more back buds and more options and more choices and further growth. Once I started feeding this tree, not a lot, low dose fertilizer every day. I'm not one to feed a couple of times a year, the maximum of what the bag says. I have always saw, and even in past life, I always saw the beauty in scaling that down to an eighth of that, or a quarter of that, or a 16th of that, whatever the dosage says, and doing that every single day, day in, day out. That's just for a plant per se. You've got something that there are other reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. I'm not going to get into all of that there. But here in California, where our winters are mild and some growth can be expected year-round, I tend to feed mostly year-round, unless it's my pots that I have different. And there's different reasons for that. It has something other than maximum yield. It's the reasons behind that. Can't leave well enough alone. All right, I've just taken off all the stuff there on the top jack, and who would I be if I denied you our cordage? This isn't cordage though. This isn't cordage. This is we're gonna tear this up. I'm gonna tear this up somewhat and put it right back down. And put it right back down on the top here. I think next time you see it, it will not look quite as organized as it was last time, as far as that moss going around. Now, those black stains I was talking about, which is also caused by the same fertilizer that I'm using to make that moss and to make the tree so healthy. If I was more, if I felt funny in any way about those dark stains here or there, or if I thought they were staining the base of the tree, or anything like that, the answer to that would be to order refillable little tea bags and throw those puppies in there. That's what I'd be doing. I'd just throw those puppies in there. Using this chopstick to take away the moss that's growing at the base of all the wood. This wood is so hard, and the chopstick is so hard. I don't think I'm scratching anything up there. And nobody's asked me this, but I've seen people ask Andy Ryan this. I have run across people who will hear the word cork bark and kind of clue in on it. Yes, I have a cork bark oak. Yes, also I have a cork bark black pine. Those two titles / descriptions are describing entirely different things. This is sort of a, I don't know if Mediterranean is the right word. This is an oak that grows, it's really old species. They are especially hardy and especially good at surviving fires, which could strip a tree like this bare of all of its branches. And for that reason, it has evolved in such a way to where this guy has bark that is just like, inside of all that bark, there might be a tree this big. But outside of a tree this big, there's all this bark. So if you were to start one of these, and you were to go through and put the kind of motion that we put in our pine trees, a few years later, you might have something that's getting kind of fat, and that motion is going to disappear because you're going to end up with a tree this round, and it may not do that. It may just swollen up, and at some point you might could detect the spiral or something in the center. But so if you were going to take one of these and do the pot in the stick thing and wait it out, I would suggest you really exaggerate the motion, because these guys do just fly. This is what wine corks come from. To harvest the cork off of this, you don't cut down the tree and take it to no. They actually cut the cork off of it in big old huge blocks that leave these trees looking like overshaped poodles. But then you've got your grove of cork bark oak, and you've got your truckload of wine corks there. So in theory, everybody's happy. And then a few years later, you get to go through and do that all again. So that is what this is. Corcus super, or the species that gives rise to wine cork, or corks in general, as opposed to my cork or Japanese black pine. That tree is mostly clone. They are an anomaly that is wooded over 1,000. They don't grow well. Their root stock is especially weak. You would have to grow, like you could just be lucky and have your cork bark Japanese black pine if you wanted it to. But mostly, if you were growing thousands of trees, you might see one or two of them. And I struggle to see how you would see that, because most of the time it seems to be those trees would die for other health issues before the grower wouldn't even know. They would just see that they had lost the seedling. They go, we lost the seedling. And they wouldn't know that the seedling they lost was especially prone to that because the rootstock is so fragile on these trees. And these trees have an anomaly that causes them to try to like fight off something, or that's really the wrong thing to say. I don't know why they do this, but for whatever reason, they do. They take and build this enormous bark over what is then, when you look at a cross section of a Cork Japanese black pine, you'll also see that the vascular system of that tree is anew. It's like not immune, it's anemic. So the roots are always in a very fragile, kind of hard to keep them alive state, and the tree itself underperforms vascularly while it seems to make this overcoating to try to protect it from who knows what. And it seems to happen early in the evolution of a tree, early in the growing of a tree. I don't know whether it happens in the seed or whether or not they kept something early in life. And I've had other people who seemingly know more than me ask that same question. I have looked into it and have yet to find an answer as to where exactly how we get cork bark pines. But we do, and mostly we get them by cloning healthy Japanese black pine stock. People will go through on their cork bark black pines and do their candles, or take cuttings, and then clone those to healthy rootstock. Because again, very, 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 very rare that you find one of these. And so that sent me to wondering about, for a while, wondering about what it would be like to try to get a cutting to take root. And I was constantly told, you're not listening to the part where we talk about how bad the roots are. To get something like that to make roots, and at the same time get it to go off and run on those roots, are two different things. And you're looking at the odds are really against you. And then they're like, and this is really not the healthiest tree in your group ever. So the amount of trouble that you would go to have something with, as I described earlier, as anemic rootstock, and you're going to pay more for that or go to a lot more trouble for that. It's the kind of thing that once you've probably done it, you're like, what a pain in the butt. Now, having said that, I'm currently not decandling my cork bark Japanese black pine because it's taken time off from that. It's an 80-year-old tree. But what I do decandle it again, just because I had spent enough years or enough time earlier in the early years thinking how neat it would be to have one. I would still take my candles and put them in wet, fine akadama, because there's going to be a couple of hundred of them. And so they're all right there. Why not? Why not graft one or two and see if you can make one short that way? And why not take a couple of hundred and stick them in some wet substrate and see if a year later you get something to seed? I'm not really big on propagation of pines as a whole. The success rate is so low, and the success rate with seeds is so good that I just kind of don't see. But I think that'd be worthwhile. So I'll probably do that. So now I've kind of got off on a tangent about a tree I'm not even working on. But that's a quick answer. This is a species of tree that does very well and likes the way it's made, and is very healthy because of the way it's made. And for it to be a cork bark, it's just a matter of its species. My other tree that has cork bark in its species name is an anomaly. It's something that happens over an illness, not exactly representing 100% vigor. but it is an anomaly. It is an oddity. It is a rarity. They are desirable. So that's the difference in the two. And then there are also things that are like cork films and stuff. Those are just also descriptions of a genetics that makes corks that are especially flaky. All right, this will water faster, sooner now. I'm going to tear all this up on my time. I'll disperse it and I'll show it to you in a little while. Also, I'm still seeing a few little cut me out here and there. Like and subscribe if you guys. Like and subscribe if you guys have not already. It looks like we've got a pretty okay job on this. But the idea here was to add more air, to add more light, to get a better productivity out of the foliage we have. Probably because of the foliage that's just robbing light from other things that otherwise not totally helping us out. And I think we've achieved that. I've got some more to do when I stand up, but whenever I get ready to water this tomorrow, it will take on water a lot faster. I don't see as much leaf curl. Leaf curl won't hurt them. It is like, for instance, if you've got something and it's full of water, it's like hydraulics. And if the water starts to go down, the tree is going to try to keep everything up and down here that needs water. As it's asking for it, it's going to keep trying to supply it. But the water level is going down here. So at some point, if it could, it would crimp the hose a little to keep the water pressure up, but it can't because that's solid wood, oak. But it can do that with the leaves. So it'll shrink its surface area here to try to make up for the lack of water pressure from the lack of water. And that's when we see leaves canoeing. The next stage is they turn brown and fall off. They could probably canoe for a little while because this is a drought-hardy tree and this isn't their first weedy roast. But it was just something that I hadn't really noticed all at once, but I would go up to water and I go, there's a little canoeing on the top. But yesterday when I went out to water, I went, the tree is seeing the leaf curl like halfway down. That told me that my little percolation here at the top that's helping is also starting to hold us back a little. And I can go in and do a little maintenance there. This was also a good time to address the little shoots there and our over density. I hope you can see what we've done. I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you are. This is what I call Bonsai Appreciation Day. It's just a little lighthearted thing. I'm surrounded by my little bonsai garden. It's not a huge place by any means, but it does bring me a great feeling of bonsai joy. And out of some of the projects we've been doing that were big or worrisome, this was just a little easy peasy. I appreciate you. Frida, appreciate you. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. Can we waddle out of your coffee? This is still over full. I don't even know if it's a camera. Alright, let's see. It's always good when I walk around the backside of the camera and we're still shooting.